What would a stranger's silence cost a hungry child? Daniel Cole never asked himself that question until the afternoon it answered itself in front of him. He was 34, the owner of a small accounting practice in Denver called Cole Financial Advisory, the kind of business that paid its bills but never made headlines. 10 years earlier, none of it would have seemed possible. There had been a stretch when he slept in the back seat of a borrowed car, when he washed dishes for 12 hours a night in a kitchen that smelled of bleach and old grease, when he learned to make a single sandwich last 2 meals. He knew what it felt like to be looked through rather than looked at, and he never forgot the man who changed that. Walter Briggs owned the diner where Daniel begged for work with nothing but the clothes on his back. Walter didn't hand him pity. He handed him an apron, a paycheck, and a sentence Daniel still carried like a stone in his pocket. If you ever get the chance to help somebody, don't make them feel small for needing it. Just open the door and let them walk through on their own. That sentence was sitting quietly in the back of his mind the Saturday he walked into Maple Creek Diner for a plate of chicken tenders, the same cheap comfort food he used to dream about when he couldn't afford it. He was halfway through his lunch when a woman in a faded green coat walked in first, her hair pulled back tight, her face arranged into the kind of calm that takes enormous effort to hold. Behind her, gripping the hem of her coat, was a little girl with tangled curls who couldn't have been older than 5. They didn't move like people out for a treat. They moved like people trying not to be noticed. Daniel watched the woman's eyes drop straight to the prices on the menu, skipping the descriptions entirely. When the server mentioned a surcharge, her shoulders went rigid. She opened a thin wallet with only a few crumpled bills inside. The little girl wasn't reading the menu. She was staring at Daniel's plate with a quiet, patient hunger, the kind that belongs to children who have already learned not to ask for things. Something in Daniel's chest pulled tight, an old, familiar ache. Then the woman said something low to her daughter, stood up, and walked toward the door without a scene, without an excuse, without asking anyone for anything. He was on his feet before he'd decided to be. He caught them on the sidewalk outside. "Excuse me, you didn't get to order. I ordered too much in there. Would you and your daughter want to sit and share it with me?" The woman turned, and her eyes were sharp, not proud, but guarded, the look of someone who had been burned before by people who called themselves generous. "No, thank you. We're fine. I don't take charity." He didn't argue. He simply nodded and let her walk away, the little girl glancing back once over her shoulder. That night, alone in his office long after his staff had gone home, Daniel kept hearing Walter's voice. "Open the door. Let them walk through." He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But he knew chasing her down with cash would only prove every fear she carried. If he was going to help her, he would have to learn patience first. He saw them again nearly a week later at Cedar Hollow Park, the woman seated stiffly on a bench while her daughter pumped her legs on a swing. He chose a bench far enough away that it wouldn't feel like a trap, and he opened a book he had no intention of reading. She noticed him within minutes. Her hand drifted to the strap of her bag, ready to leave if he made one wrong move. He stayed seated. Over the following 2 weeks, he returned when he could, never approaching, never waving, letting the distance between their benches shrink on its own terms instead of his. One ordinary Thursday, they ended up on the same bench, far apart, saying nothing for almost 30 minutes, until the little girl ran over and announced, "Mama, that's the man from the diner!" Her mother's voice snapped instantly. "Emma, don't bother people!" But the girl had already turned to Daniel with the plain honesty only children still own. "Do you still eat chicken tenders?" He laughed before he could stop himself, and something in the mother's posture eased by a fraction. "I appreciate that you haven't pushed," she said quietly, pulling her daughter close. "But I need to be honest. I don't accept help from strangers." "I understand," Daniel said. "No, you don't," she answered, and then, measuring him for a long moment, she decided to explain anyway. Her name was Hannah Reyes. Her daughter was Lily. 2 years earlier, Lily's father had left, and after years out of the workforce, no one wanted to hire a mother with a gap on her resume, except a man named Gregory Voss, who ran a string of small businesses and offered her flexible hours and decent pay. At first, it was fine. Then came the late dinners, the comments about her clothes, the reminders that she should be grateful, that no one else would hire her. When she finally refused him, he made calls. He told every place she applied that she stole, that she used men, that she couldn't be trusted. She lost her apartment. She and Lily spent 4 months in a shelter. Now she did laundry for cash, low pay, no security, but no debts to anyone. So when you offered to help at the diner, when you kept showing up here, she said, her voice steady despite the red rimming her eyes, I kept waiting for you to name your price. Nothing is free. There's always a bill eventually. Daniel didn't rush to insist he was different. Men like Voss always said that. Instead, he said, thank you for telling me, and told her his own story. The car, the dish pit, Walter, the door that had opened for him without a price tag attached. Then he set a business card on the bench between them, rather than handing it to her. I need an administrative assistant. Real job, real contract, real probation period. This isn't charity. Hannah didn't touch the card, but she didn't throw it away either. 3 days passed with no call. On the fourth, his office phone rang. Mr. Cole, this is Hannah Reyes. If the position is still open, I'd like to interview. She arrived 15 minutes early on Monday, in a dress ironed with obvious care, carrying a resume on slightly yellowed paper. Daniel interviewed her exactly as he would anyone else, and by the end, he slid a contract across the desk. 90-day probation, market salary, take it home, read every line, have someone check it if you want. It's fair, she said, almost suspicious of the fact. It should be, he answered. This is a job, not a favor. For the first time since they'd met, she smiled, small but real, and accepted. Daniel treated her like any other employee. No special treatment, no personal questions outside of work, calm corrections when she made mistakes, plain acknowledgement when she did well. Within weeks, she was restructuring the client scheduling system, catching contract errors before they became expensive, trimming unnecessary software costs no one had asked her to look at. He realized how close he'd come to overlooking a sharp, capable person because her resume had a messy gap on it. 6 weeks in, his phone rang at 8 at night. Hannah's voice was frantic. Lily has a high fever. She's struggling to breathe. I'm taking her to the ER, but I have client files due tomorrow, and I know I'm still on probation. I shouldn't be asking. Stop, Daniel said. Take her to the hospital. Work is not more important than your daughter. But the contract? I don't care about the contract right now. Which hospital? He drove there with old memories surfacing, his own sister's fever years ago, the bill afterward that made his stomach drop. Poor families don't just fear illness, they fear what comes next. He found Hannah in the waiting room holding Lily, whose breathing was shallow and labored. They think it's pneumonia, Hannah whispered. They want to admit her, but I don't know how I'll pay for it. I'll cover it, he said. No, listen to me. I will pay the hospital directly. You won't owe me loyalty, gratitude, anything. Accept it for Lily. She cried quietly while a nurse called her daughter's name, then turned back once. You won't use this to change how you treat me at the office? I'll still expect good work. She laughed through her tears. Lily was admitted for 3 days. Daniel handled the bill and nothing else, leaving every medical decision to Hannah, bringing coffee and sandwiches, sitting in the hallway for hours without forcing conversation, simply present. You could have paid and left, Hannah said one night. I know, he answered. Why didn't you? Because when someone is afraid, presence matters more than money. On the third morning, Lily's fever broke, and the first thing she said when she opened her eyes was, Mr. Daniel is still here. He smiled. I'm still here. She looked at her mother. He's good, like you, Mama. Hannah cried, not from sadness, but because after months of suspicion, her daughter had called a man good without fear. When the 90-day probation ended, Daniel signed Hannah's permanent contract without hesitation, showing her the numbers. Error rates down 40%, clients praising faster response times. I'm saying it because you earned it, he told her, and watched something in her finally loosen. Months later, Hannah came to him wanting to help another struggling mother at Lily's school, terrified of getting it wrong, of making someone feel as small as she once had. Start small, Daniel told her. Not, I'll save you. Just, I have an extra pair, barely worn, if your daughter wants them. And if she says no, respect it. She did exactly that, and it worked. A few months after, she told him she'd signed a lease on her own 2-bedroom apartment, the first place in 2 years no one could suddenly take from her. Standing in her small new kitchen one evening, drying dishes side by side, Hannah finally asked him the question they'd both been circling. Have you ever been afraid you're getting too close? Yes, he admitted, because I'm your boss. Because I have more than you. Because a man already used his power against you once. I'm afraid saying this too soon will feel like pressure. How do you feel? I care about you as more than a friend, but I won't act on it unless you're ready. Your job has nothing to do with this. Lily's safety has nothing to do with this. You don't owe me a kind answer. Hannah was quiet for a long time, then said, I care about you too. I'm just scared. Then we go slow, he said, and she reached out and took his hand. Not a declaration, just her fingers resting in his after an ordinary dinner, but it meant more to him than any speech could have. They moved carefully after that, transferring her direct supervision to another manager to remove any conflict at the office, taking Lily to the park, cooking quiet dinners, volunteering together at the community center on weekends. Hannah began helping other women the way she'd been helped, never with grand gestures, only with patience and a door left quietly open. A year after the afternoon at Maple Creek Diner, they were married in a small ceremony at that same community center, with one chair left empty at the head table for Walter Briggs, the man who had opened the very first door. In his vows, Daniel told her, I don't promise to fix every problem you have. I promise I won't use love to take away your ability to stand on your own. Hannah answered, I don't promise I'll never be afraid again, but I won't let my past make decisions for my heart forever. On a quiet spring evening years later, washing dishes together while Lily did homework in the next room, Hannah mentioned a new woman at the center who had refused a meal voucher that day. What did you do? Daniel asked. I put it on the table and told her she could take it if she wanted and that it was fine if she didn't. Then I walked away. Did she take it? After about 10 minutes, yes. Daniel smiled. You opened the door. Hannah leaned her head against his shoulder. So she could walk through on her own, she said. He didn't save her that day on the sidewalk. He only noticed her trying to leave quietly. Everything after that, the interview, the trust, the slow rebuilding of a life, she chose herself, one careful step at a time, until the woman who once refused a free meal became someone who taught others how to accept one without feeling small.